From our point of view, we wished we wouldn't have had to have the last 8 days. From our perspective, the conflict was forced upon us by the rocket fire from Gaza into Israel. Now, these understandings reached with the Egyptians promise to create a new reality for the citizens of southern Israel who will, if these understandings are implemented, and I will believe they will be, a period of peace and quiet, both for Israel's civilian population and for Gaza's civilian population. It can be win-win.
Okay. So how quickly
these
do you think
understandings are good from our point.
Yeah. How quickly do you think the blockade can be lifted?
According to these understandings, the restrictions will be discussed within 24 hours. Israel is open. You've got to remember cause and effect. When we pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2005, when we took down the settlements, when we pulled our forces out of Gaza, there were no restrictions. The restrictions were imposed as a result of hostility from Gaza into Israel. They started shooting rockets, terrorism, violence.
We won't rehearse that. We all know that this is a backwards and forwards, and each side will blame the other. Can I just ask you, has the balance of power in terms of the Palestinians now shifted to Hamas? You used to negotiate in terms of peace arrangements with Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinians in the West Bank. Have you now strengthened the hand of Hamas, and will you now deal with them for a broader peace agreement?
We have not negotiated with Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization and recognized as such by the United States, Canada, the European Union, Japan, Australia. Even the United Nations does not have a direct political dialogue with Hamas for that reason. We are talking to the Egyptians. They are our neighbor. They are our partner in a peace treaty, and these understandings were reached with the Egyptian government.
Okay,
with the sponsorship of the United States, of course, and we thank them both for their support.
So this is the situation at the moment with Hamas. You've got the ceasefire with them. What about the rest of the Palestinians? What will happen if Mahmoud Abbas goes to the United Nations at the end of this month and asks for that enhanced status for the Palestinians? What will the Israeli government do then?
Well, we think that would be a mistake. To move forward in peace, the only way to do that is through negotiations, through face-to-face talks, Israelis and Palestinians meeting, putting on the agenda what both sides need for a peace agreement and negotiating an agreement. And we think everything else is a mistake.
When you say it's a mistake, would you cancel the Oslo Peace Accord?
I have never said anything of the sort. What we would do is we'd say that that would be a mistake. There is no substitute for face-to-face peace talks, and I frankly don't understand Mr. Abbas. He says he wants peace, but he refuses to talk to Israel. Who does he want to make peace with? Guatemala? Okay. Peace has to be made between Israelis and Palestinians by talking together. There's no substitute for that.
Okay, so just back to this current ceasefire agreement, we understand there might have been some kind of explosion. We haven't got confirmation of it yet. In your book, what constitutes a breach of the ceasefire? Because in the past, ceasefires have been slightly elastic, haven't they?
No, I think this is very clear, and it's good that the Egyptian government, it's their proposal, it's their understandings. There is a complete cessation of all hostile activity from Gaza towards Israel. You can't have a situation where a missile is fired and Hamas said it wasn't us, it's Islamic Jihad or it's Al-Qaeda. No. Hamas is responsible, and all hostile fire from the Gaza Strip is forbidden. That's rocket fire, rifle fire, bombs, slingshots, no hostile fire whatsoever. And that's why we see these understandings as a victory.
Just on that point, it has been suggested that al-Jabari was actually one of the few people who was capable of maintaining a ceasefire and controlling some of the factions that aren't Hamas and making sure they didn't fire rockets. Are you in danger of having sort of shot the one guy who was able to control things?
Well, I think it was clear that when he was around, he wasn't really controlling things because we were having hundreds of rockets launched at Israel. So I'm not sure the premise of your question is factual. It
was Gershon Baskin, who was one of the negotiators of the secret back channel for the release of Gilad Shalit, who wrote this in a New York Times article a few days ago, Israel's short-sighted assassination. So Gershon Baskin presumably had some fairly good information on the matter.
Well, I don't share his information. I'm not aware of that information. Once again, the facts are clear. When he was in charge, that particular terrorist, we had many, many rockets. We didn't have peace.
And how confident are you now that this ceasefire will hold?
From our perspective, we are totally committed to these understandings that were negotiated with the Egyptians. And we will, of course, abide by our commitments. If the Palestinian side does as well, if Hamas and the other groups maintain quiet, we can move ahead to a future which is better for both Gazans and Israelis. That's good. If they, of course, violate their understandings, Israel reserves the right to respond, to protect our people against hostile attack. And I think what will be interesting is they're not violating an agreement with us. We didn't make the agreement with them. They'll be violating understandings that they reached with the Egyptians. And so if Israel is forced to respond, we hope there would be greater understanding.
Mark Regev, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us.
My pleasure.